So bringing your energy body to life. And meditations to assist at birth. It's more like practices which are going to help you understand the living of your life and how to influence the form that you take at birth. You see, we as humans tend to think that we are most definitely going to be born as a human again. But as you'll see, I wouldn't really take that for granted. So it may be, to think about just where you could be going. So all of this is related to meditation and the system that I've been trained in is called the Mahamudra system. And it's about Tantra. Tantric Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism. And Tantra is about practice. The Vajrayana is about meditation practice. It's about understanding that the living of your ordinary life is a vehicle for transformation and changing the way your mind works. It not only changes the way your mind works, it changes its structure, and it actually affects your DNA. Mm-hmm. It's to do with the switches and things in your DNA. And so we're talking about like at a molecular level, so this isn't some kind of wishy-washy love and light kind of idea. You may experience that if you're lucky, but in general it's very practical, So these practices originated in India, and they stem from Gautama, who was a Hindu, Brahmin, and wasn't quite happy with the practices, and he wasn't happy with how he himself wanted to go about transformation, so he searched for answers. And so the traditions that are now in East Asia and Tibet come from India, but our particular line of practices come from a great Buddhist university called Nalanda, which some of us have been to. Vast, thousands of monks and teachers and yogis and And this is where these Vajrayana practices developed from. And there was a progression. There was the original things which the Buddha said, which some people adhere to now. And then there were ideas developed by the practitioners from those original teachings. So the first one is called Hinayana vehicle, and in India there were 18 different traditions of Hinayana. Now there's one left, and we know it as the Theravadan tradition. And the difference, the basis is a philosophy. And then there were people who were more interested in the practice. And so they began to follow the Tantric traditions, or the Vajrayana. So there are three main threads of Buddhism. There's the initial thread, which teaching is still available. And there's the Mahayana thread, which is available in East Asia. And then there's the Vajrayana, which is kind of known more as Northern Buddhism, because it's in the Himalayan and has a very rich sort of way of presenting itself, as you probably saw in our tea room. And here there are some examples of. And they first moved to China. And then just before the Muslim invasion of India and the destruction of Nalanda, there were vast sort of Buddhist universities. They were all destroyed. But our practices, the ones that we're going to talk about, and the theory on which it's based, comes from what we call the Nalanda tradition. So each of these universities had like gatekeepers, because in those days, if you belonged to a tradition, you could go to the city gates and challenge and have a debate. And whoever won the debate, the whole city had to change to this particular tradition, see? So you had to have very clever people on your gate, you know. So some of the, one of the gatekeepers is, how do you say, the yogi who passed on all the practices and learning to our lineage. Our lineage starts in India with Tilopa and Naropa, the two yogis who went to meditate in Nepal. And some people have been with me to the places that they actually meditated. And just before the invasion of India by the Muslims, translators went down. But this was the second time they'd gone down. There was an original group went down, and that was the first tradition in Tibet. Then another group went down. We'll talk a little about this later. And brought the teachings back just before the texts. And the practices are based on 15 major tantric sadhanas. So a sadhana is like a meditation practice. It's formulaic. And we'll discuss that a bit later on. and each is connected with a specific form that you meditate on. And that form is called a yidam. Yidam is a Tibetan word. It's yi chi dam tsikpa. Yi is mind. Dam tsik is that which holds the mind. In other words, this is what you focus on when you do your practice. Okay? And some of those texts, they're still available in Tibetan, Chinese, and Sanskrit. Even although the Cultural Revolution came, there's still texts in China. There are Sanskrit texts that were brought from India into places like Ladakh and Mustang and Bhutan, Nepal, and in some of the libraries in Tibet, there's ancient Sanskrit texts that haven't been opened for hundreds of years. They're just put into a library, and only the practice texts and things that really matter are used. So that's kind of a brief outline of like this, the roots of this Mahamudra system. And there are different variations of it. And I think that's all I want to say about that. So sadhana, a sadhana or sadhana is a meditation practice. It's a text. There are two aspects to it. One is called the development stage and one is called the completion stage. So one is like the whole of your life, the development, and the completion stage is, as it says, that's it. It's complete. And so these are the names of some of them. Some of them I'm familiar with. Tara, Mahakala, Hayagriva, I know. Amitabha, Amiteus, I know. Akshobhya, I know. Vajrayogini, Vajravarahi is to do with pigs. And Haruka is to do with the visions. No, that's not true. Chakrasamvara, I know a little bit about. Vajra Bhairiva, I know a little bit about. Hivajra, I know a little bit about. Chod or Chut is a practice where you chop up your body and offer it up and dismantle it on a regular basis so you don't get sort of too attached to it. So you don't really worry about which hairspray you use or deodorant or whatever, And Vajrapani is like three different kinds of yidam. Okay, three different things that you focus your mind on. One is peaceful, one is semi-wrathful, and one is wrathful. So these practices are used for different things. Wrathful practice for protection and really digging deep into the psyche, because what you're doing is modeling your meditation practice based on your own psychological profile. Okay? That's what the practice is about. And there are many yidams on this. If you look at that big, this is called the tanka, and there are different things on it you can see that are like on the right hand side in the circle at the bottom. These are peaceful deities. In the middle there's a mixture of wrathful, and there's a mixture, there's semi-wrathful, and then underneath there's wrathful, the one underneath. So you can see afterwards what they look like. This is a very special tanka. This is my own personal lineage tanka, but it's also signed by His Holiness Dalai Lama. So the various tantras talk about how our world came into being, the origins of beings and the origins of world systems, if you like. It looks into life and birth. This means like life, birth, death of like physical form and of energetic form. So the practice is about working with form so that you begin to understand its nature. So what does that mean? It means you understand that form is empty. So if you're into quantum physics, then this gives you some idea of what it is that you're working with. And then all of us, within us, is we wouldn't be able to move if there wasn't sort of different types of energy and winds and stuff moving around in our body, you know. And so in the latter stages of the practice, then this is what you're working with. You're not working with your physical form in the sense that you're paying too much attention to it. You're working with the form of your energy body. You're working with mind itself as opposed to what happens in it. At the moment, we're fixated on our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions. And sensations, you know. And we believe that this composite thing is us, you know. The meditations are about you understanding that your body isn't the way that you think it is, and that this idea of you being me or I is just purely a figment of your imagination and something that you made up, and something that you got hooked on, and something that you can't let go of. So moving beyond that, then you're talking about mind and mind itself, pure mind, and then you're talking about the pure form of the body. So in the Vajrayana, in the practices, you don't start off hoping to become enlightened. You start off from the very beginning imagining you're already enlightened, you know. So it's a bit like developing a habit. How does a habit form? Repetition of an action or a thought, or see? So if you repeat the practices enough, then you will come to realize pure mind, and you will be living in this purest of bodies.